So I think you can all agree that it's super easy to use a template to create quick and easy textures using your airbrush. But how can we create textures without the use of a template? That's what I'm going to show you in this video. And be sure to stick around until the end so that you can see how I create my favorite grunge texture without the use of a single airbrush template. So let's begin with a basic patchy texture first. And to create that, I'm keeping my air press down and I'm pulling back on my airbrush and just adjusting my height and my paint flow as well as the speed to create that patchiness. Basically do everything incorrect and you're going to get a nice patchy texture, and it's super easy to do. So another great little effect, keep the air press down and move quickly with your airbrush like so and create a bit of a crosshatch. This is probably more of a pattern than necessarily a texture, but you can definitely use it for texturing as well, and just adjust the height and how fast you're moving as well as how much paint you're pulling back to basically vary the entire look of the crosshatch. Now this works really well for any sort of fabric that you may be airbrushing, and definitely an easy, fun one to do. You can also come back a bit further from the surface and do a lighter version of this. So I'm still moving relatively quickly, except now I'm further away. And you can see you're getting a totally different look. Okay, so for this one, essentially what I'm going to do is make up a paper template. So you've seen me use normal copy paper in a lot of my videos, which you can easily tear, but I also like to use paper towel. And you can do the same, just tear it unevenly, and you can lay that down, and that's going to allow you to create all sorts of textures nice and easily. You can also scrunch it up. You can also get a piece and scrunch it up and then hold that down and spray around that, and that's going to give you some different effects as well. Now I understand essentially this is making your own template, and I said no templates, but I wanted to show you this anyway because you're still not using an airbrush template. And now to get the stippling effect, you can see I'm using my airbrush up nice and close, and I'm allowing my trigger finger to deliberately bounce my airbrush around, and that's giving me this uneven texture, which is really handy to use for multiple different applications. And again, if you're further away and do this, then you're going to get a softer version of that. But the key is to just pull back on that trigger and let the airbrush move freely in your hand to get that unevenness. Another way you can get a splatter effect is by using paddle pop stick, or in this case just a little stirrer, and you angle your airbrush down onto it. You'll notice that I have the air cap removed. That's going to make this task a lot easier. The closer you are to the front of that stick, the finer the spatters, and the further you pull back, the larger they'll become, because it's going to ricochet the paint off the surface and splatter it. So this one takes a little bit of practice, but it's a really cool effect when you do get the feel for it. So you can see how easily that creates a quick splatter effect. And further back, you're going to get larger ones, larger again, and then up close, you'll get nice fine ones. So you can see how I use this in some artworks. I'll put some links in the description below to videos that I've utilized this splatter effect in. Another way to create some effects is by using some synthetic paper like this. And to create different effects, you can use a blade, a dowel, and an eraser pencil. You can see this one's got a pink end for softer textures and a white end for harsher textures. So spraying some paint down. For this example, I'm using Createx illustration colors because they work really well when using synthetic paper. You can see using the dowel, I can easily remove the paint and it's going back to the white of that synthetic paper. You can also move it around like so to create a different texture. And then you can use a blade and get hair textures in quite easily. Then on this one, using the eraser pencil, I can do the same sort of thing. Move that around with the harsher one to create a harsher texture. Or switch to the softer side. You can see that the paint hasn't hardened as much, so it's still very fresh, so it's still coming off quite easily. But if I let that sit for a bit longer and just lightly rub over the top, then that's going to only remove it a little bit. You can see here and get a softer texture. Okay, so this effect is great. You just get your colors, whatever you want, and it works best on a LU panel or canvas, like more of a harder surface if you're going to do this one. It's not really going to work as well on paper, but just unevenly patch in your colour. I'm going to use two colours just to get a bit more of an effect. So we've got the blue on there, and then I'm going to hit the edges with a bit of the black. You can see the static has picked up on some of the spots, which actually works all right for what I'm doing. That was unintentional. And then getting yourself a little spray bottle and with some window cleaner in it, and it has to have the ammonia in there. So this will also work if you use airbrush cleaner, but I just like to use the Windex. And then a bit of paper towel, sort of loosely scrunch it up. And what I'm going to do is spray. So probably a bit too heavy on those bits. You can leave it like that and experiment, and you're going to get all different effects. Like that looks pretty cool as it is, but I'm going to come in now and just lightly dab it. And you can see that's going to remove bits of the paint. Could also use cling wrap and just experiment with different things to create different effects. You can see the paper towels giving sort of a look like that, and then obviously now it's starting to dry off. It's kind of pretty cool for a grungy look. Let's try a bit of bubble wrap and see what that looks like. I'm just going to spray this again just to re-wet it. Again, just from a distance you can see how it's nice and aggressive. And using that bubble wrap, you can sort of tap down on there to get cool effect as well. Just hit that around the edges. So don't be afraid to experiment. You can see I've kind of left that center section, just using the bubble wrap around the edge. Like you can see that's fairly wet, so I need to dry that. And then when you're happy with it, seal it off. You can clear coat it and then work back over the top. And how cool is that? That's now dry. And just by using those simple techniques, you can get a really, really cool effect and then put some airbrush artwork over the top. So if you want to learn more about airbrushing, then check out some of the other videos and playlists that I've got listed here. And until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.